Yes, well, Bev, this is really quite damning material. We had heard that there were warnings given to police before the crowd crush that occurred here on Saturday night, but now we've really got the evidence of what those warnings were. The transcripts of multiple phone calls, 11 in fact, to South Korea's version of 000, the number you call when you need a quick and immediate response from emergency agencies like the police. The first phone call came at around 6:30 that night, so that's about 4 hours, or almost 4 hours before the crowd crush, and then you've had another 10 phone calls after that. And when you read the transcripts from these, it's extremely clear that these people are worried about the situation and conveying that worry to police, saying there's a lot of people here, the situation is completely out of control, people are struggling to move, people are at risk of falling over, there might even be some screaming, people have even offered to send in videos, and they all are making the point to police that this is a very dangerous situation and you need to get the situation under control. And in the transcripts, you can see the police officers are confirming the location, and then they end the conversation with, okay, we'll send some officers, or there are some officers on the way. What actually happened after those phone calls, well, we don't know, but it has been laid bare. The evidence is clear that police certainly got all the warnings they needed that something very dangerous was unfolding.
Yeah, and so what has been the fallout from these revelations?
Well, understandably, you can imagine that people here are livid. They are furious and they are upset, especially when you read these conversations that were happening with police. And people here really want answers about what police actually did with this information. Did they do anything with it at all? Because particularly as well, you know, crowd control is a normal part of policing here. There's usually big protests and big pop concerts, and you know, if anything, sometimes police are criticised for having too many officers for crowd control, but clearly in this situation they didn't respond adequately to an unfolding situation, and now there's a big investigation into the warnings before and during this disaster. 8 government offices have been raided today. That includes police stations, and that includes the emergency hotline, this 000 number that South Korea has, so the local version that they would have. That these offices have been raided as investigators try to get to the bottom of what exactly happened that night.
Yeah. James, what do we know about the death toll? We know there are still a lot of people in hospital. What is the latest?
Well, I guess fortunately the death toll hasn't changed today, so we are still at 156 deaths. Injuries hasn't really budged either. Last we heard 150 odd getting treatment in hospital and 22 in a critical condition. There's been no update there. Now, of course, those figures include some Australians. The death toll includes Australian Grace Rashid, the filmmaker from Sydney. Her family arrived last night to visit her in the funeral parlour, which is attached to a hospital about an hour from where I am, and they'll be making arrangements to get the body of Grace Rashid home. There was another Australian who was listed as in a critical condition, one of Grace's friends. They were together that night, and there's been no update on her condition lately at all. The other news from today, though, is that the gymnasium here has been converted into a big lost and found centre where all the items that were collected from the evening can be returned to their owners. That has now been set up. So we're dealing with 1.5 tonnes of personal items like wallets and watches and passports, clothes, and very sadly, you know, Halloween costumes, because it just really serves as a reminder that this was meant to be a celebration and it turned into a calamity.
And James, while the nation is grappling with this tragedy, North Korea continues to test missiles.
Yes, well, of course, while South Korea is mourning and is in a period of mourning, it still has to deal with a very aggressive North Korea. Now, today it launched around 17 missiles, which is a record from the north there. And that included 3 ballistic missiles this morning. One of those ballistic missiles landed only about 60 kilometres from South Korea. That's very close. First time that's happened. So, of course, that has infuriated South Korean officials, and they've fired rockets back in retaliation, and then North Korea has retaliated to that by firing 100 artillery shells as well. Now, this feeds into a much larger picture of a more provocative, a more aggressive North Korea. Bev, the big concern, of course, is a nuclear-armed North Korea, and South Korean and the US officials are expecting another nuclear test from North Korea. That'll be the first time that has happened since 2017. And according to South Korean officials, all technical preparations are complete. And North Korea has passed laws to say that they will not give up their nuclear weapons ambitions. So unfortunately, it seems that a nuclear-armed North Korea and another nuclear test is much more of a when rather than if, Bev.
Indeed, sounds like it, James. Good to get that update from you. Thank you so much.